right?
Oh no! Wait, hang on a second. I screwed that up because I was. Hang on. It's Comedy Dish.
Co-starring Rick Wright and Stephen Allen Green.
Now it's officially a show.
It's officially back now. He's just our guest just messaged me. He said he put the link in Firefox and nothing happened. You shouldn't use Firefox, right? Use Chrome.
Yeah, if it works with Chrome, go with it. That's what I said to him a few days ago. Is if it works, fine. Then, but otherwise, upload Firefox.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to upload Firefox.
Or whatever you do. Whatever you
do.
Whatever I did a couple years ago.
Yeah. So how are you? Welcome, Los Angeles. Welcome, London. Welcome the rest of the comedy speaking world.
Yes.
My name is Stephen Allen Green. I am co-host of Comedy Dish, and my co-host in London is Brian Seff, aka Rick and Wright from Rick and Ruby. How are you, Rick? Or I like calling you Rick. Brian, it's 2 syllables.
That's fine. Yeah. There's more use of fewer vowels to deal with. Yeah, I'm doing great. It was I went to see that the King's Head documentary on Saturday, and it was just it was really inspiring. And Maggie went with me, and she felt the same way, and she didn't know. I mean, she'd met Peter several times, but yeah, just she felt a part of it. She felt like it was reaching out to non-comedy people, so it was well done in that respect. The only thing that unnerved me was there was a segment where Peter's talking about his illness and saying, "Well, they told me maybe 6 to 9 months," and then later in the same film, he's saying, "Well, I've been told I'm cancer-free." So there might have been an editing problem in there.
Yeah. I was messaging with him last night. He's abroad in Europe.
Yeah. I called him today and found that same thing. Yeah.
So Neil is in the green room. I should tell you. Our guest today is American comedian and comedy promoter, producer Neil Masters. I met Neil, I think, back in '95 when I was in London originally, and great guy, interesting guy. And I want to find out more about him. But tell me, Brian, how's your father? No, how's how are you doing? You're not doing the London comedy. This is what kills me. I want to get back there and do the London comedy scene. I have gigs waiting for me. I just don't have the wherewithal right now to go, and I got other shit going on here.
Yeah,
but you're there and you're not working.
Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, I've got a gig June 17th.
You do?
Yeah.
Is that for Gary?
No, that's King's Head downstairs.
Downstairs to King's Head.
Yeah, and I'm there DJing the night before that. But yeah, I'm finding so much to do with, and I might have another DJ gig that has been kind of offered to me. So if I'm going to supplement, because I made some decent money as a comic over here, but that kind of withered at the same time as Jongleurs. So the fact that I've found other things to do that supplement, that make me an income is, and I'm not having to drive for 4 hours on a Friday to do 20 minutes somewhere in the Midlands and then get in the car and drive back home.
Yeah, no, that stuff's rough. Yeah, I admit I had money when I was there, so I would make it easy on myself. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But I did see a posting on Facebook recently in the last few days of Jongleurs reopening, I think in a cinema. I'm not kidding. And Susan Murray, your best friend, is doing the gig. So I mean, Jongleurs, Jongleurs always got put down by the smart comedians there, but I really liked Jongleurs 99% of the time. I did have one of those Friday night, get off the stage, go back to America, you loser nights, when everyone's really drunk and not listening to the word you're saying. But the other 9 times I played there, it just great audiences. Just
Sure.
it's
Um,
like
No, the one thing I really respected them for was, um, if any group was booking a large group of people, uh, they had to pay £100 up front as a deposit, and if they were unruly and had to be thrown out, that £100 was gone. That the
Hey,
Jongleurs.
mate, you want to go down to Jongleurs? We can just fuck up the show. Really?
Yeah,
They let you do that? Yeah, well, they charge you £100, and then they let you do whatever the fuck you want.
yeah, yeah. No, it worked. To some extent. I mean, um,
Yeah, sure.
I remember a gig in Birmingham where they couldn't throw people out fast enough because they were all just screaming, "Fuck off, Yank! Go back to America."
Yeah, I mean, that makes it harder for us Yanks to get booked. But, the truth is that I never had anything like that at Peter's Club downstairs, the King's Head.
No,
Never had anything like that at East Dulwich Tavern and numerous other clubs.
yeah,
Paul Vallis is the spot in Covent Garden. Do you ever work that club, by the way?
which one?
Paul Vallis. He had a one-nighter in Covent Garden. It was at a nightclub called The Spot, and they had a downstairs stage.
I do remember it. I did it once. Yeah,
It was great. I loved it. It was my favorite gig for a while. I was on shows with Frank Skinner and shows with what's the name? Matt Lucas.
Okay, yeah. The person I worked with there has done a lot of TV since. A black woman named Andy Osho, Osho. I forget how it's pronounced, but yeah.
Hey, listen, speaking of Osho, I don't want to make our guest a no-show. What can I say about this guy? I'll tell you what, I'll go to his intro. That I do this every show, Neil. Don't take it personally. I just forget who I am. And so I got to read stuff. Don't forget, I'm also the producer. Our guest, well, he started his career as a rock and roll DJ on album-oriented rock station. I think that's AOR, not AOL. In his native Southern California, after graduating from UCLA and blah blah blah. Yeah, sorry, I'm blah blah your intro. He started doing stand-up, which led to paid work around the UK, Ireland, Europe, New York, and touring shows around Canadian Fringe festivals. Here's a big thing. Neil was a finalist in the prestigious HBO Comedy Festival. That's big. Jesus. I mean, how do you do that? Maybe you can tell us. He has always worn both hats, according to himself, stand-up and promoter. Neil's late show at the Edinburgh Fringe attracts the who's who in comedy. That's the intro. We don't have time for our guest now, so we'll see you next week. Please welcome Neil Masters.
Hey guys.
Hello, sir. Long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's funny that you mentioned The Spot. I've been thinking about The Spot because I think that's the first time we met at The Spot.
I think so. And by the way, Paul Vallis, who ran it, who's been living here in Southern California selling cars, Lexuses or Lexi, got married to a beautiful young lady. They had a kid, and he's moved to Spain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Maybe he'll do comedy for the British expats who live in Spain.
That was a good gig. I remember Paul used to do a lot of impressions.
He was great. He was great with impressions, but it was also, do you remember, Neil, his bit about Jesus Christ as James Bond?
I remember his Mr. Magoo bit, but I don't ever remember that bit.
So I'm not going to do this justice, and I'm just going to bullet point it, but I have to do it because it's so brilliant. It's one of the most brilliant bits I've ever seen tied to an impression. I forget the exact setup of the words, but it was, basically, I'm Christ. He would do Sean Connery's voice, but Christ, Jesus Christ, license to heal. And then he does the impression of Goldfinger, No, he does an impression of in Goldfinger of Bond laying on the table, getting the laser put up towards his crotch, but he's got his arms akimbo and stretched out like he's being crucified, and he says, "I suppose you want me to talk." And then Goldfinger says, "No, Mr. Christ, we want you to die." I mean, he's fucking brilliant.
No, we were expecting you, Mr. Christ.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's
so fun. Paul, he did a Mr. Magoo, such a talented guy and you know, a harmonica harpist and blues singer.
That's
Yeah.
a good
Anyway,
gig.
fuck.
Yeah.
Huh?
Monday night gigs were rare, and it was one of the good ones.
It was
No,
a
that-
really good one.
Yeah, I remember it well, because I worked it with Andy Osho. I'm sure you've seen. She's been on TV. Yeah. Where I first met you was you had a gig in Ipswich.
Oh yes, I was going to mention the Ipswich gig, Great White Horse Hotel.
Yeah, that's right. We came down to do the show and then went upstairs to our rooms. It was, very convenient.
Yeah, they that was a great gig. They it was only a monthly gig, but it would just sell out immediately after one was finished. People in Ipswich
It was
craved
it was a Sunday night, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And where are you phoning in today from, Neil?
I'm in your other room.
What? Hang on.
No. Yeah. Did you tell?
No, I'm that's why it's such trouble connecting. No, I'm in Lewis, East Sussex. It's near Brighton. If you know it, Stephen.
Yeah.
Okay. You're in the UK. Yeah.
50
That's
miles
on
east of London.
So
Oh,
Neil,
oh.
Neil, I mean, I remember you from I believe it was Ha Bloody Ha in Hanwell, one of Simon Randall's earliest gig.
Yeah.
Remember that?
That was
Ha Bloody
great.
Ha Bloody Ha. It was it, huh?
Yeah, I did that a lot. Yeah, Ha Bloody Ha. Yeah.
I love that room.
Wasn't that in Ealing?
It was in Hanwell, which is the cheaper side of Ealing.
Okay, yeah, because I seem to remember getting off at the Ealing Broadway station.
Yeah, that was it. But then Simon did a purpose-built club called it was initially called the Chiswick Comedy Club. Now it's called Headliners. Big room in Chiswick. Chiswick, mate. So, what have you been doing? And tell us. So, tell us what you've been doing.
What do you want to know? What do you want to know?
Well, I want to know what tell us about your experience on the London comedy scene in the 90s.
It's in the 90s, it would be there was two types of audiences. The ones that okay, he's American and he's over here, he better be Robin Williams. It would be like that. That would be the level of pressure, because I have a kind of a middle of the road, because my mother's Scottish. I have kind of a middle of the road Canadian accent. So if I get introduced as Canadian, I'd have a really different experience in the 90s. But it was really a proving ground. You just always had to, up your game. And
Right.
But because I live over here, I used to get people would ask strange questions. They would always say, "Well, you're American, but you never talk about the USA." And I said, "Well, my experience is here. I talk about life here."
Right.
That would.
Yeah, because you haven't lived in America for over 20 years, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What brought you to the UK?
I was at UCLA, did a degree in English literature. It was supposed to be a gap year, and I don't know. I just got connected and met people I liked. Ended up staying, but I'm not so much the expat because I do have she's deceased now, but a Scottish mother, and I'm an Italian citizen as well as American, so it's easy for me to be here.
Okay, yeah, I'm still an American citizen, but I've lived here 20 years, and in fact, I'm about to get my latest American passport from the consulate here, which because my last passport expires on Sunday, on May 7th. So hopefully I'll get it before. I mean, not like I'm going to be traveling abroad this week, but it's amazing how many hoops you have to jump through to get the stuff done over here.
But at least you know what hoops. I mean, in America, it's like you get contradictory advice left. I mean, when I was, for example, I have Medicare now. Before that, I had something called Covered California, which basically is Obamacare. But there are some things that I can still get from Covered California. Anyway, the point is, they have these supplement companies that you pay like a monthly insurance, like a fee, and you get dental and different things, but you get limited dental. My only point is, there's no one source of information on what the right thing to do is. And I've spent an inordinate amount of time researching something that millions of people do all the time. And I'm not particularly stupid. Well,
yeah,
but that's not the
times those things that to the people that present it to you that well, it's it's a slam dunk. You can get this done. And going, no, I don't quite understand what this.
Well, part of it I think is because people have had it for a long time before the computer age, but internet age. But I think it's just, I don't know. There's actually consultants that hire themselves out. My only point is that yeah, there are a million loops to go through sometimes with the English bureaucracy, but at least it's a centralized thing. My experience has been, I got to do A, B, C, and Z to get my driver's license, but specifically what it is. No one's going to come and say, no, that's not right, unless you're in a Monty Python sketch or in the movie Brazil. But generally, my experience is it's always contrary to their image. People are always telling me, England, the food sucks. And I go, it's the best food in the world, British food when done right. And they've got Indian food, and they've got the best pizza, in my opinion. And they're right next door to Spain. They're Spain, so there's tapas. So it's always the opposite of what people think about England. What do you think about that, Neil? I put myself to sleep. Finally, I put myself to sleep.
No, I was just waiting for the punchline. I thought you had a punchline coming, a big insurance punchline.
It's on the way.
Yeah. A lot of people say those things, and I don't find, the complaints people have about food. I don't find them because I know where to go. There's, great vegetarian, vegan food here. London, Britain, it's become an international cuisine. In the 90s, though, it wasn't. In the 90s, I remember just going to, not a big fancy Waitrose type grocery store, just a grocery store to buy some olive oil. And they said, we're sorry, we don't do specialty items.
Yeah, but that was the 90s. I mean, I remember working Jongleurs in Leicester, and just down the road from the hotel we were staying at, they had a Mexican restaurant, and it was a nice try. Let's put it that way.
Well, they didn't. They didn't do Mexican when I was there. But I got to say, I lived in fancy schmancy Notting Hill, and they had, and it wasn't just Notting Hill. It was up by the King's Head, and Muswell Hill, where they would. There was a great trend in the 90s where they were taking old, dusty, post World War II, post 1960s pubs, gutting them, converting them into modern, hip, cutting edge kitchens. And you had Gordon Ramsay's restaurants, and you had Conrad's restaurants, and you had Jamie Oliver and his show. So there was a real focus on great food. And anyway, that was my experience.
Well, yeah. Now, I mean, it was, in fact, Stephen, you were with me. My first experience with just a, in fact, Reginald D. Hunter had a great line, 2 words that don't belong in England: customer service. And I just remember we were at some pub, and I saw on the menu lemonade. I thought, oh, this will be good. They bring me a Sprite, and I go, this isn't lemonade. And the waitress.
Well, that's a confusion of translation.
Yeah. Well,
they didn't mishear you. Lemonade to them is Sprite.
Yeah. Well, and but her answer was, "Oh, there's lemons in it." So
By the way, I had, I think, a pretty darn good customer service joke. Always was a winner. You got a lot of things that are very different here in England that are not like we do in America. For example, you go to any restaurant in the UK and you see on the menu 3 little words, "service not included." They're right. That was my joke. But I actually, again, I had more money than my friends, so I didn't just dine at Simpsons and the Strand or something. I would, I'd go to your local chippy and
right
curry.
yeah,
Huh?
you lived right above, a working man's
I
restaurant.
lived above a workman's calf, so yeah, that was great. That kind of food and English breakfast. Are you kidding? It's nothing like an English breakfast. Hey, I think it's time we should do our first round of our pub quiz. We'll be right back with Comedy Dish and our special guest, Neil Masters. All right, we're here at Pub Quiz. It's Steve Allen Green versus Neil Masters, and our pub master, quiz master, is Brian Seff, aka Rick Wright in London. 3 questions, 3 rounds, 1 point per answer, no prize. Go for it.
It's just egos, but because Neil, this is what I've been doing mostly of late. Not so much stand up, but doing a lot of pub quizzes, and I'm starting to DJ again. So and plus I'm semi-retired. But anyway, so good luck, and I'll try and keep these. Well, because you've been in England all this time, I could ask some English questions, but I'll start with musicals for the first question. What 1943 musical was the first for the composing team of Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein?
South Pacific?
No. Further.
On the Town?
That wasn't Rodgers and Hammerstein, but that was a really good musical. That's where Love and Marriage came from. No, the answer is.
They're going. Is that the one with the sailors and they're New York, it's a wonderful place.
I thought that was. Oh, that's Anchors Away, I think.
Oh, Anchors Away, yeah.
Okay,
we're giving up on this question, right, Neil? What's the answer?
I don't know. 40s, I'm not sure. No.
It's Oklahoma.
I almost said that.
Oh, well, the new version of Oklahoma, the deconstructed version, is excellent.
I saw it really is excellent. It's
what version is a new version?
Yeah, there's one playing in the West End now that's just pared down to the basics. They just are all together on the stage. There's not a coterie of dancing girls or anything like that. It's just they sing the songs, they act out the script, but they're all in the same room at the same time, and
that's cool.
So that was a surprisingly, a friend of Maggie's got us tickets, and I thought, okay, Oklahoma, that'll be fun, and it really was.
Okay, question number 2, 0-0. Question 2.
Question number 2: what online retailer, since opening their first physical store in London in 2021, now has 15 throughout the UK as of February of this year?
Amazon?
Amazon is the correct answer.
Hey. Yes. All right. It is
It's 1-0.
0-0.
I didn't even know Amazon had stores. I need to go check this out now.
Yeah, that was a good trick question because a lot of people didn't know that they have physical stores. Now, question number 3. This is a classic TV question. Who is the only star of Cheers that never reprised their character on Frasier? That never guessed.
John Ratzenberger?
No, he and George Wendt appeared together on an episode.
Let's see. Well, it's certainly not Lilith.
Yeah. B.B. Buell appeared.
Hang on, I gotta ask somebody. I'll be right back. Just give me a couple of seconds. Give me something.
I,
I'm not going to use that information to win.
I wish there was. If there was a prize, I'd try harder.
Okay. I'll give you a clue. It's someone who wasn't in the first couple series, but was still a prominent member of the cast, but showed up later.
Oh, Kirstie Alley.
Kirstie Alley is the right answer. So see, Stephen left. So now you've tied the score.
Oh, good. Yeah. I had to go really lateral with that to come up with Kirstie Alley.
Okay, I have an answer, but I'm not going to give it because I've been coached. So I want Neil to just punt with this.
He got it.
I've given it. And
is it Woody? Woody?
No, it's Kirstie Alley.
Oh, it's Kirstie Alley.
Yeah.
Brian decided he went away. He was giving you a prize. I could get 2 tickets somewhere. I don't know.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No, I had to ask my neighbor because very close to those people, just because I thought it was kind of a cool thing to do, not because I needed help. Anyway, so the score is 1-1 on our first round of pub quiz. Okay. All right, let me get professional here. Let me go back to our comedy dish theme. We'll be right back. It's comedy dish. Okay, we're back. So Neil, so what have you been doing these days, Neil? Are you doing comedy or producing?
I still, obviously lockdown and everything like it changed things around. I don't proactively seek stand-up gigs unless I'm asked or offered. I still do a monthly gig here in Lewis, as in addition to.
You mean you produce one?
Yeah, a comedy club. I still do club comedy. The next show coming up on the 11th of May, and
Tell us about some of the people you've had on that show. What's the gig called? Maybe I can Google it. What's it called?
Comedy at the Con.
Comedy at where?
The Con.
So it's the Con Club in Lewis. So we just ended up sticking with the name, just called
Comedy
it
at the Con. C-O-N.
C-O-N. Yeah. Comedy at the Con.
And Lewis, it's on the coast, isn't it?
It's near the coast. We're inland a little more. It's 8 miles inland from Brighton.
Okay.
We've had a lot of people on the show. We've had Ramesh Raghunathan, Gary Hill.
Wow. Do you have a website?
Okay, that's no small potatoes.
But it varies. I mean, it's always a good show. We always have we have a strong opener. I know in the States what they call that, the featured act. So a strong opener. In the middle, I like to feature up and coming acts. So usually 2 tens, and then a good closer doing about 30, 40 minutes.
Now I remember where Lewis is. Yeah, because my girlfriend and I we spent a couple days in Brighton last year, and during one of the afternoons, she said she'd heard a lot of good things about Lewis, so we just went there and walked around, and it was gorgeous. Yeah.
Well, I heard a lot of bad things about Lewis, but that was another Lewis 21 years ago.
Well,
all right. So this is what I'm finding on the web here, Neil. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Well, what's on Lewis Con Club?
Yeah. There's nothing listed for this month yet. The show's not locked.
It looks like Lewis at the bottom of the screen there. No.
Yeah, it's a music venue, so they do lots of music gigs.
Oh, interesting. It looks like a lovely place.
Yeah, it's a good gig.
Yeah, in fact, one of my favorite gigs was one in Portsmouth that had it was a music club, but they did comedy on Fridays, and now I can't remember the name of it, but that the rock and roll audience was really great for that club, and I worked there with Andre Vincent and Jim Jeffries, and I worked it several times, and always fun. So So do they have name music acts playing at this, or are they just local bands or something? Or
No, it's various. They get a lot of acts who are kind of on their, I don't want to say in their twilight years, but a lot of acts that
yeah,
are
I,
having
s-
second
I just
run,
saw,
and
I
they
saw
get quite.
Bad Manners there. Yeah. So
I mean, they what kind of Thunderclap Newman played there? you know, where you
well, I saw Bad Manners on the
yeah.
listing there.
Well,
So
they make it worthwhile for bands. I mean, because they can do a standing gig there. They can do, I think, 250 standing, and they only care about their bar, so they give all the money to the band. So it's worth them doing. Um,
yeah,
it's a good space, but comedy wise, I still gig. I gig when I'm asked. I had some gigs not so long ago up in Newcastle. They were great. Um,
oh,
and then local gigs, but I don't proactively seek to fill my diary anymore.
yeah,
Why is that?
I like being. I think what used to happen was I'd make a lot of effort to get the diary filled, and then it'd be like, oh, I don't want to go to
Yeah.
Birmingham or wherever. It's
yeah,
kind of it's the kind of thing I used to have when I was on the radio. I like being on the radio 2-3 days a week. 2 days a week, not so much. I just didn't like it. And I knew it was time to change when listeners used to call me up and say, "Oh, you sound depressed."
Oh God.
and,
yeah.
I said, "No, I'm just really bored."
And
Uh,
you're the one that's on the air, and and you're supposed to be getting calls from listeners and counseling them on their being depressed. So
yeah. I
they're kind
mean, um, yeah. So the interaction with listeners was always interesting because uh, there is that relationship with listeners where it's one to one, where they actually believe they are the only person listening, talking to. I always remember once when I was doing a morning show, I was just like with stand up, just riffing, like saying, "Oh well, don't just lie there waiting for the next even number on the clock. Get up now. You need to get up now." And I was blah blah blah, just and then playing another record. Didn't think about it at all. Just a little bit of business. I got a call later in the day, just some woman thanking me. She said, it was because of me. She got up and she was on time for work for the first time in 2 weeks. So the power of reading.
Yeah. One of the best times I've ever had in showbiz, and I not only didn't make any money at it, I paid to do it as a pay to play internet radio show I had for a year in San Francisco.
mm,
And the guy who ran it paid for, this is what he told me, and I assume, paid for music rights. So I had in studio guests on the phone, and we'd go to a song. I just go to YouTube and pick out an appropriate song. And I did these things where I created an audio piece where I'd be interviewing Neil Masters and Rick Wright, and I would, in advance, I would sort of think about some commonalities of personality traits or career traits, and I would come up with a movie clip. So I would play Blade Runner, which had nothing to do with you guys, but I'm just saying an example would be I played Blade Runner, which would then lead into Tower Powers, What is Hip. I loved doing that stuff. And
I yeah, I remember doing the show
you
when
did the show
I went,
live.
yeah, I was in
Oh,
studio. Yeah,
terrible memory.
yeah. No, I was. That would have been about 2010, somewhere around there.
Yeah, around there. I mean, I had such a great time doing that, and everybody seemed to like the show. And I had great guests. I had Will Durst on the show twice. I had Dad Pasternak
You
on the
had
phone.
you had Paul Mooney on the phone.
Oh, that Paul Mooney one, I still have that up on YouTube. Where, I mean, he's passed on, but I think he had hearing problems, and he was a bit, as the interview was, "Hi, Paul, welcome to the show. Who is this?" It's Stephen Allen Green. We got you on the show. What show? I don't know about any show. And he would say it in such a sort of aggressive, dismissive way. But then once he clicked in, he was great.
Good thing he clicked in, because that was really, really taxing hour or so.
It was a bit of a nail biter with him. But I knew he had been ill, and God rest his soul. He was truly probably the best comedian at the Comedy Store ever of all time. I mean, it's a bit hyperbole, because there's so many great examples of who was the best, Sam, Robin. But I think Paul Mooney was just so great, and such a classy guy. Did you ever hear Paul Mooney, Neil Masters?
Oh, very much so, yeah. I've had the privilege of seeing Paul Mooney perform. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Where?
I think it was what the basement in New York. What's it called?
Comedy Cellar. Comedy
Cellar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. It's a great place to see Paul Mooney. Wow.
Yeah, he stopped in to do something, as many people do at that gig.
Yes. Well, I had many encounters with Mooney when I first started working at the Comedy Store, because Mitzi seemed to like to put me on after him, and he would do 45 minutes or an hour, and then bring me up with this half-assed intro, like, "Oh, you've seen him on all the shows. Please welcome Rick Wright." And
did he ever introduce you negatively, like,
no,
well, we
no,
have another white boy, unfunny motherfucker?
Yeah, he wasn't that bad, but I made a slight faux pas of trying to be complimentary to him, and saying nice things about his work or whatever, as a way of, well, maybe if he likes me, then he won't fuck around for 45 minutes, and so then I get this guy Todd was the doorman at the time, and he comes up to me and says, "You won't believe what Mooney just said to me." And I said, I bet I will. And he goes, "Yeah." He just said, tell your friend with a guitar to stay out of my motherfucking face." It went uphill from there. There was some point where he recognized that, oh, wait a minute, this guy has a soul, and he's intelligent. And then he decided he liked me, and he got so pissed off at Carlos Mencia stealing his bits, he said, "Rick, I want you to write me a song."
Oh, wow. Did you?
So I did. I wrote it, produced it. He never did anything with it, but he loved it.
Can you play it for us now? Do you remember it? Do you have it recorded?
God, I don't know what I did.
Next week.
But it was called "Find Yourself" was the name of the song.
Mind Yourself?
Find Yourself.
Find Yourself.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Neil?
Oh, now you were mentioning difficult introductions, that Mooney maybe gave a bad introduction. So I was thinking, what introduction experiences have you had where the introduction really was difficult for you to get on and do your set?
I have the best. I know exactly the answer.
Okay, I do too. I'll let you go first.
Okay.
Let me go first. Okay, so we'll go around. Okay, so London, I was double booked. First, I was booked in Ealing at the aforementioned, I think it was either Ha Bloody Ha or one of the Simon Randall gigs in the way west of London. And then I was booked at the Cosmic Comedy Club on Fulham Palace Road in Hammersmith, which I'd played already, and which I had won the contest that night, 100 quid, and where I filmed part of a movie I was an actor in, playing an American producer. And I got along with that place. I liked that place. I had no problems with that place. So I do this first gig, and I'm running late, and I'm in a cab, and I'm racing over to Hammersmith to do the show. And I get there. I like to be at comedy shows when they start, so I can see all the information and how it's been reacted to. And there's a comic on stage who I didn't know, and he was killing it, absolutely killing it. But I wasn't paying attention to what he was saying, and he got off to a tremendous applause, and the stage was now empty. There was no MC. There was nobody, and it was empty for like a minute, and that's a long time. And the audience was like, oh man, comedy, 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 and then he just sort of literally slides like in his sock feet, like Tom Cruise in Risky Business, to the microphone and says, "Please welcome an American comedian, or all the way from America, Stephen Allen Green," which wasn't my intro I gave him.
Yeah.
And the audience started booing, and the reason they were booing, and they wouldn't stop booing, and it was a booing fest, shout fest, where I didn't handle it very well. I mean, I just tried to calm them down. I tried to insult them. I tried to play with them. I tried to get them to be on my side. Nothing happened. The reason, so this comic was Noel Britton, and Noel, who's a brilliant comedian, his act is based on how stupid, at least then, that set, at least I saw, was based on how stupid Americans are. I didn't know that. And my opening line is, "Good evening. My name is Stephen Allen Green, and I am from America." I literally would say that because I'd want them to boo. And then when they booed, I would then come back and say, "Wait a minute, let's try it again. Please welcome Stephen Allen Green." And they cheer, and I go, "Good evening. My name is Stephen Allen Green, and I'm from London." And then they cheer. And then I go, "So do we have an American series? Those bleeding fucking wankers." And they laugh. And that got the American thing out of the way. But this time it completely backfired because they had just been conditioned by a really good comedian named Noel Britton about how stupid Americans are. That's my story. And I had to crawl off stage. It was gut-wrenchingly humiliating. The club owner, Joss, hated me, never booked me again. And it was one of those things that was like, ugh.
Well, okay.
Still makes me ill.
Yeah. I seem to remember someone named Joss that was a guy, but
no,
okay.
It was a woman. Very
Josh
nice.
Hughes.
What is it?
Is it Josh Jones?
Maybe. I think she's a South
Yeah,
African.
I think that is. I think that's.
But you're talking about the Cosmic Comedy Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine was at the Comedy Store
In London or in LA?
In LA, and Lenny Clark was on before me. And
great, just so our audience knows, a great Boston comedian from Boston who's in a lot of movies. Very funny guy,
and a lot of TV shows as well. Had supporting roles, and he was riffing away, and I was behind the curtain, and this was in the original room, the smaller room at the Comedy Store, and I was setting up my guitar, and I decided to plug in, but I didn't realize that the channel that the thing was plugged into was hot, so that when I plugged in, it made a big crackle, and it threw Lenny off, and he said, what the fuck's going on? He looked around behind the curtain, and I was like, I was just, I was trying to apologize, but I didn't do a very good job. And it threw him off enough that he finished his set. And then he said, "Okay, coming up now is a fucking asshole with a guitar. You can all leave now because he sucks."
Do the audience laugh at that?
No, but they sure didn't like me.
Did they leave, or did they stay to heckle you?
They just stayed and did not respond to one thing I did.
You see, an introduction makes, this is what, here's the problem. They don't use MCs anymore at the Comedy Store. Did you know that, Neil? In LA. They haven't for almost 20 years.
Yeah, I haven't been in the Comedy Store in LA in a while, but I don't think they had an MC. It was just dovetailing. One act brings on the next act.
And they stopped MCs in the 80s, actually.
Yeah, when I got hired there in 81, there were MCs, great MCs. And then, I became an MC and pretty quickly, and I loved it. And I worked the crowd and had no material anyway, so I just worked the crowd and I introduced people. I think it's an important thing to have, the MC. I think it's really important. And the reason they got rid of the MCs at the Comedy Store was that some of these MCs were doing time. You don't do time. I produced my show, Real Comedy Stories, at Genghis Khan, a really cool Chinese restaurant, on the 17th of April. It was a great show. We had Melinda Hill, who asked to be on it, and Rick Overton and Al Bamani and Adam Lieblein. A really great show. And I did a good job that night, and the show ran well because I made sure that I did my story up front and then introduced acts and didn't do any material in between unless it was spontaneous. And there was a comedian who told a story about having it was my agent and comedian Adam Lieblein telling the story about how he was representing a client who had a deal at CBS, and with one of his clients. This was like a big deal to get a deal with your client at CBS for a TV show, and he actually said the phrase, CBS contract. So when he finished his story, I went up as Neil Lieblein, Adam Lieblein, give him a round of applause. They're applauding, and then when the applause dies down, I said, "By the way, Adam," and I'm addressing him personally. "By the way, Adam, I had a contract with CBS too. I mean CVS. It was a very long contract. Anyway, coming to the stage right now. So that kind of material that you come up with that is relevant. When you make a mistake when you're emceeing, there's a lot of self-produced newer comics who produce a night, and it's a bringer, and they're the MC, and then they bring on an act, and then they've given themselves a feature spot because it's their show. And I just don't think that works. I think you get one bite of the apple. You just you do your bit, you say goodnight. And if you're the MC, you do your bit. Instead of saying goodnight, you go, who's next?
Yeah. Before we get Neil's story of worst intro.
Thanks, Brian. That's very subtle.
Yeah. But before it looked like I was disparaging Lenny, yes, we had a row after I got off stage because I had a disaster set. And so I said something to him. I saw him in the car park, and I said, thanks for the intro, Lenny. That was, and he just went off. You don't fuck with my act. So
So he fucked with yours?
Well, he didn't fuck with me with my act. No, but he was just pissed off, and he let me
fucked with your act. If he fucked, listen, I love Lenny, but if someone gives you someone of that stature,
he wasn't
shitty intro.
He wasn't. That's what it was a terrible thing for him to do, and it didn't get any better after I got off stage and saw him in the parking lot.
It doesn't make him look good. If he had people in there to see him, to hire him, this is what a lot of comedians don't get, and why their career flatlines or never takes off. And I was guilty of this in the past. I've changed. I'm reformed. I'm reborn. If you are showcasing for buyers in the industry who could further your career by representing you or giving you a TV show or a movie or a gig in Vegas, really great gig in Vegas, then you must at all times be polite and professional and not be bitter, and not even if you think it's funny.
Yeah, don't let it show if you're bitter, for sure.
Bitter or angry. No one wants to work with angry. No agent, no manager wants to work with angry. And I used to think when I was younger, but I'm right about this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter that you're right about something.
So what the aftermath was, I didn't see Lenny. I went on the road for a couple of weeks. When I came back to the store, I run into Lenny. He says, "Hey, Rick, how you doing?" I said, "Well, much better than the last time I saw you." And he just goes, "I was out of line. I'm really sorry."
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. All right, look, I think it's time for our second pub quiz. So we'll be right back.
We have Neil's.
Oh, sorry. I have a lot on my mind today. I apologize. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm going to my car. I got to do my laundry.
fine.
I apologize, Neil. I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right. Have either of you worked with Johnny Vegas before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was.
Well,
He came on stage with me in Manchester at the Frog and Bucket, and when I produced the second High on Laughter in Edinburgh at the 3,300 seat Edinburgh Playhouse, he was a star.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Johnny's lovely. Johnny's lovely. But the introduction, it was at Just the Tonic in Nottingham, and the bill was Howard Reed was on first. I was in the middle, and Tim Vine was closing, and Johnny was MC.
Nice show. Yeah.
When Johnny's MC, it's his show. Johnny will take over. So Howard does fine. But Johnny's been doing a bit of business with the audience all this time. He's actually got young women in the front row to swap clothes with them. And
What?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So Johnny swaps clothes with these young women. So he comes out with these little hot pants on, this really tiny shirt, and then he gets the audience going a bit nuts, where he's doing a pull your pubes competition to see who can pull the longest pubic hair. So he's doing all this, and this is after Howard's been on, and he's yet to bring me on, and he's made this sort of insane behavior with the audience. And then he gets to me. He gets to me and he says, all right, the next act. Well, he's American. We know how we feel about Americans. So don't give your laughs away. Don't give them away. Make him work for everything. Make him work for every laugh. So now, please welcome Neil Masters. So then I come out and I thought, well, I'm just going to attack Johnny. So I did a whole 10 minutes on how ridiculous what he had just done was, and just went after him. Oh, look at me. I'm Johnny Vegas. I'll swap clothes. So I do all this, do 10 minutes, get them on my side. Then I do, 10 minutes of set. Then I close off. I see Johnny afterwards. Johnny says, oh, that was brilliant. He said, there was only one thing to do. It was to attack me, and you did the right thing. And
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
that's-
it has a happy ending. When I was
really scary intro has a happy ending.
Yeah, that's great.
so I just want to go back to my engagement with him on stage. I'm a musical act, I guess, because you play guitar, even though it's not the majority of your act, you're a musical act. I'm doing great, and he joins me on stage. I didn't invite him; he joins me, and we start singing songs. And it was like we were doing Northern Soul, and it was. I couldn't tell if he was taking the piss. It didn't seem like he was. It seemed like he was sincere and enjoying himself, and it was just one of the greatest honors. And I would have gotten pissed off if it was someone else who did that. I suppose maybe back in the old days. But I think there's no greater honor for a comedian, an American comedian of my, working class stature, not famous, but working class, to have a star come up on stage with you and play around with comedy. I mean, I remember it to this day.
Yeah, well, I remember that show too. That he sang "King of the Road" and danced until his trousers fell down. So,
oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was in the High on Laughter show that you got him for, the one at the Edinburgh Playhouse. You had a great lineup for that. You had Ian Cognito, who was also in one of those. That's the next subject of one of Joe Bohr's movies.
Yeah, I know. Joe was telling me that day Ian had gotten arrested for throwing a chair through a pub.
Yep.
And when he did this show, and Peter Graham was I was lucky enough to have him as a showrunner again. Ian was going through like some kind of self-dissecting, deconstructing, emotional gestalting rant, and Peter said, "Let him continue. He needs to do this." I thought that's Peter. Let him continue. He needs to do this.
Yeah.
and this is a 3,000 seat theater. This was the show. I thought this poster was overly done, but Mark Thomas. Do you know the story of the three top ones here? Mark Thomas, Emo, and Johnny.
I've worked with Mark and Johnny. I never worked with Emo.
Emo's great, and we had him at the Palladium show as well. Initially, the show was I had Charles Fleischer, who's an American comic who was the voice of Roger Rabbit, and
worked with most of those acts.
Yeah. So initially it was Charles Fleischer, Mark Thomas, and Emo Phillips, and the way I had the poster, it was a great poster. It said Mark Thomas, the voice of the people. No, Charles Fleischer, the voice of Roger Rabbit. Mark Thomas, the voice of the people. Emo Phillips, the voice in his head. That was the poster I had designed before Charles Fleischer pulled his shenanigans and dropped out of the show at the last minute after I paid tens of thousands of dollars in advertising. All right, still bitter over money. Of course I am. All right, it's top of the hour. We have half hour left, so let's do one more. Let's do two more pub quizzes. We'll be right back. All right, pub quiz. What's the score, Brian?
Score is 1-1.
1-1. Okay.
Yes. Oscars is the category.
Oklahoma. Oh, no. Okay.
No, that one didn't. I don't know if that won any Oscars. Anyway, what was the only film for which Martin Scorsese won a Best Director Oscar?
Oh, I know. I know the answer.
Kings of New York.
The Departed.
It's The Departed. Yeah, he should have won for Kings of New York. He should have won for Raging Bull. I mean, there was a whole slew of them, but yeah. So 2-1. Okay, human oddities. If someone suffers from polydactyly, that's POLYDACTYLY. It's a human condition. What do they suffer from?
Too many teeth.
It's too many of something.
Too many fingers.
Too many fingers. Yes, multiple fingers.
Wow, what's it called? Say it again.
Polydactyly. Or polydactyly, I think it is.
Polydactyly. All right. Wow. So it's 2-2. Scores.
Condition.
What was that?
Some sort of dinosaur condition is what I thought it was. Like
there too.
Okay. Social media is the category. Who surpassed Barack Obama this year for the most followers on Twitter?
This year or last year?
This year.
Tucker Carlson.
No.
Is it the same? Is it anything? Is it broad based? Any type of personality, public figure, or is it?
It's a very famous public figure, yes. But not. I mean, Barack Obama, was number one for a long time. He surpassed. I think it was Justin Bieber and Katy Perry that were second and third for a long time.
It's not Elon Musk himself, is it?
It is Elon Musk, yes.
Oh, well, he's got that game rigged. Of course, he's got the most followers.
Yeah.
He owns the platform.
Yes. So
he just has his engineers.
Yeah. What I can't. I have such trouble with Twitter now. Whenever I go onto it, I immediately have to wade through. And I don't follow any of these people, but there's tweets from George Santos and Donald Trump Jr. and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And
are you sure you're not following them?
I haven't blocked them, which I probably should.
No, but I mean, go to their page on Twitter and see if it says following. That means you're following them, and that maybe they somehow manipulated that as a default.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that because there's the first one that shows up is a guy named Nick Adams who just people respond to his tweets by saying Nick Adams because Trump's balls won't lick themselves. So but he's just one of these people that just thinks Trump is the greatest human being to ever walk on the planet.
He isn't. Are you saying he isn't? You want to get into this, Brian? I'll roll up my
What?
sleeves. I'm ready to fight. Come at me.
What?
Yeah.
You're
I'm
disparaging.
playing a character.
Disparaging Donald Trump? What?
Me?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh boy, that's really edgy stuff, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Uh,
Yeah, right. All right, give us another question. Just a couple
okay.
more.
Yeah. Let's try this one here. How many planets' orbits are between the asteroid belt and the sun?
Oh,
The
numbers.
Van Halen belt, you mean?
Yeah. Well, it's the asteroid belt that is it's situated between two of the planets.
I say 2 planets that it's between. There's Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. I say it's between Venus and Earth.
That's not correct.
I didn't say it was correct. I said that's
Yeah,
what
all
I'd
right.
say.
Could I have the question one more time, please?
Yes. How many planets' orbits, are between the asteroid belt and the sun? So it's kind of saying between what two planets is are the asteroids? But it's
All right. I'm going to take a wild guess. Mars and Jupiter.
that is the correct answer.
How the hell did he get that?
So
Wow.
it's 4. Yeah.
Oh wow, well done, Neil. Well done.
Okay. So
my
now,
science, the few things I remember, my science in university, instead of doing like physics, chemistry, or that, I did astronomy with nighttime. So I do remember a few bits and pieces.
I studied astronomy. I had a really great class at LACC. I loved that. I just remember going there and just finding it fascinating. I want to go back to college. I want to go back to college and university. I think that's what I need.
Yeah, there's so many interesting courses that are being, especially at the more progressive colleges. I mean, you can study, you can major in the Beatles, for example. I mean, when I was in college, and I was a music major, they just, they were kind of begrudgingly acknowledging that the Beatles were a good group, but they really weren't. The professors weren't too keen on it, And I was into Frank Zappa at the time, and they'd never heard of him, so that said a lot.
Oh, I've got a Frank Zappa story, a strange one.
Oh, bring it on. We've never had one of these, have we, Rick? A Frank Zappa story on our show?
It's a strange connection to Frank Zappa because I was at a Frank Zappa concert. Frank was taunting women to throw their panties onto stage, and it was the night that John Lennon was killed.
Oh gosh!
And so I was at the concert, and I was working in radio at the time, and I had to return to the station because of John Lennon's death. So my link to Frank Zappa is also associated with John Lennon's death.
Wow.
That's interesting. Yeah, there was some concert that Zappa was doing where John Lennon was watching from off stage, and Zappa just said, "Hey, you want to come out here, man?" And and Lennon apparently jammed with the Mothers of Invention.
There's a video going around I've seen recently where Zappa just hates Lennon, or got into some kind of confrontation with him, or wasn't impressed with him and told him, "I'm not impressed with you."
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have events that you were doing something, maybe like going to an event and then something tragic happened that you all associated with, or we're doing something mundane like September 11th, and then you always remember because you were in the middle of something, then got the news?
I mean, I remember before I got into comedy, I was a singer-songwriter exclusively, and I was running a show at a vegetarian coffee house in Hollywood on Mondays, and turn on the radio, and I'm hearing all these Lennon songs, and I'm going, "What's going on?" And then they announce it, and the show must go on, but it was devastating, obviously, and I was shocking. I remember it was because I remember when JFK got shot. I remember that,
You know,
and then Lennon
enjoy.
was shot, and there was nothing like it since. Even 9/11, even whatever. Even January 6th. This was a unique, one of a kind of thing where you're just
Yeah, there'd never been a rock star that'd been assassinated. So that was a different thing.
well, wait a minute. When did Marvin Gaye get stabbed by his dad?
That was after, but yeah,
So it set a precedent then.
but that
Oh,
was yeah, that wasn't a fan. That was
A
his dad.
trend.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was more. It's more than a rock star. Lennon was much more than a rock star. He was much more. He was iconic. He was the icon. It was like he was the icon of the iconic, and
yeah.
he was just beloved by the world. Fascinated by the world was fascinated by him, and and he also just meant so much to me personally, and
Sure.
and I mean, I traded Beatle cards in '64. Bubblegum cards, and I
I had
would
those.
separate. I separated all the boys. They gave you 5 cards. They gave you one of each of the boys and then a group picture card. And I went to Will Wright's candy shop at Randy Phillips, if you're watching the show, in Beverly Hills, and I got 10 of them, and then I took them home and I unpacked them, and then I stacked the Pauls with the Pauls, etc. So then during recess, the older girls, I was in '64, I was in 3rd grade, I think. And the older girls in 4th and 5th and 6th grade would come out. They'd see me and run towards me and be screaming, I want one of those. I want one of those, and it's a nickel, it was my first business. But
Oh, you charged them a nickel a card. So,
maybe a penny. I don't remember. I didn't just give them away. That's for sure.
yeah. Well, I yes, the night Lennon was assassinated, I was my partner Ruby and I were meeting with the producer Mork and Mindy to talk about the episode that we were going to appear on, and just and they had Monday Night Football on, and just in the you know, but the sound was low. But whenever we interrupt for a bulletin, you think, okay, this is pretty big if they're interrupting Monday Night Football, and then they said that, you go, really, you know, and then it changed the scope of things, and it didn't talk about it much for the rest of the night, except that when Ruby and I got in the car and they were just playing John Lennon songs, say, oh, okay, it's really sunk in now. So yeah, he really is dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, but at least it was a productive evening. We got all the business sorted about what the episode was going to be about and stuff. And 3 months later, we did the episode. So
well, speaking of episodes, there's a writer's strike here in Hollywood. Started yesterday.
yeah. Yes.
And people are scrambling and people are protesting. And what is it? Protesting, picketing. And I support it. I support the strike. I support the writers. I support the Writers Guild. I think everyone should get paid for their work. It's about streamers. It's about actors doing stuff. That's part of it. That's the main thread of it, I believe.
When I was a student at UCLA, my 2 student jobs, I worked for the Academy of Motion Pictures for a while, and then I worked for the Writers Guild for a while. So,
wow.
yeah, I had 2 jobs. The Academy job was a library job, but I got to go to the Oscars every year, so that was good. But when I worked for the Guild, I had 2 jobs there. For a while, I was a messenger, where I would take scripts from the Guild to writers. So I'd go all over like LA, like go to Mel Brooks's house. Here's your latest script, and go to all over the place. So working with writers, going to the studios. It was a nice job, but it's like the kind of student job you get when you're in LA.
Yeah. And just come up to those houses in Beverly Hills, and oh, here, yeah, here's your script, Mr. Brooks. And did they tip you or anything like that?
No, usually I just had to wait because it would be like there was changes being made, and then could you wait there? Usually staff would leave me. Sometimes the actual person would leave me. It just depended.
Mm.
But it was nice to meet people, nice to go to studios. In those days, there'd be like go to Disney. All you had to say was, "I'm here to pick up something at the Ink and Paint building," and then it'd be like, "I'm from the," and that was it. No IDs, nothing. So a much tamer time.
No. So you could have used that as a ploy, later on, and they would have let you in anyway, huh?
Oh yeah, they did. They did. Even when I left the guild, sometimes I would just go to the studios and say I was from the Writers Guild. I'm just going to the Ink and Paint Bill at Disney, and I just go into the commissary, have lunch, hang out with whoever was working that day.
I have a sort of a story about a studio invasion like that. I was working at the dry cleaners, Holloway dry cleaners, 24 hours, the only one that was open, and celebrities would come in and all that. And anyway, through that, I got information on how to sneak into the premiere of Saturday Night Fever, which was on the Paramount lot, through one of the guys who was going. So just use my name. So I got dressed up and I went, and it was fun. I met, took pictures with Olivia Newton-John and Peter Frampton and the Happy Days crew and Lily Tomlin and it was a huge party, and James Brown was singing and dancing on stage, and it was the 3 sound stages. It was a big to do, and every once in a while at this event, somebody would come to me and go, "Do I know you?" And I said, "Nah, yeah." He said, "What do you do? Are you?" "Let me guess." They'd say to me, "You're an A&R at Capitol, right?" And I go, "No." Wait a minute. You're I know. You're in script development at CBS, right? And I go, "No. I know you." And I'd say, "Let me give you a clue." And they go, "What?" And I go, "No starch, Friday at noon." And they go, What are you doing here? That kind of thing. So,
Well, you were honest with them. That was
well, it just goes to show you it's the same thing that excuse me, I experienced with this reality show producer I had in my Uber in January. And I told them my story, my showbiz story, and they were so impressed, and it led to a relationship where we're developing something. We don't know if we can sell it, but we're developing something, and they're a company that produces content for Netflix and Hulu. And my point is that if I had said this at a party, at a big Hollywood party, I wouldn't even have the opportunity to at a Hollywood party. You can't go up to anyone at a Hollywood party and say, "Hey, can I tell you what I've been doing for the last 20 years? The most incredible thing." No one be interested. I wouldn't be interested. But when you're the Uber driver, excuse me, just context is everything. I think. I'm going to keep downgrading myself. I've done all these incredible things, produced a show at the London Palladium, played and won audiences all over the UK and a good portion of Europe and Canada and the US. But you know what? I'm now a street sweeper. I think this is where I'm finding my spiritual center, Neil, is that I used to do what everyone else does here in Hollywood, which is give you the highlights, I knew a guy who was a chauffeur and drove around celebrity comics, like who's a celebrity comic, Dave Chappelle, and said, I'm opening for Dave Chappelle. "You are?" "Well, I'm a chauffeur. I'm opening the door." They just stretch the truth. All right, we got time for one more pub quiz, and then
what's the score?
I think it's 3-3.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
We'll be back.
All right, pub quiz. 3.
All right.
Third, fourth and final round.
All right. in the news introduced last week. What is the latest incarnation of the Barbie doll in Mattel's attempt to be all-inclusive?
Oh, they Down syndrome.
Down syndrome is the answer. Yes.
Really?
Down syndrome Barbie. The famous, I can't remember her name, but there's some model with Down syndrome who's.
I thought Ken just had Down syndrome. All right, fair enough. Good answer. Well done, Neil.
Okay. I'm going to change this a little bit because the answer would be too simple otherwise. But in 1976, when Lorne Michaels came on camera on Saturday Night Live, and he offered the Beatles, he said, "We'd like you to appear on Saturday Night Live." How much money did he offer to pay the Beatles?
I know this, but I'll give Neil a chance to get it.
$1?
No.
No.
And it came with a punchline. It was $3,000.
Yeah.
And he says, I know that's hard to divide up 4 ways, but you can give Ringo a little less.
Yes.
Oh.
Those are the exact
Fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Other commemorations. Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey last week declared September 23 would be what famed Jersey native's day? It's also this guy's birthday. What famous New Jersey native?
And this was declared by a politician?
Declared by the governor of New Jersey, yes.
This is going to be Bruce Springsteen.
It's Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. Because the governor was born to run for office.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. What's the score now, Brian?
I was going to say Chris Christie, but I thought that was
That would have been a good sarcastic answer.
Christie Day. What's the score now, Brian?
It's 5-4, Neil. So
all right, so let's do. What do you want to do? What do you do? 2 more questions. How many do you want to do?
2 more.
2 more questions. 5-4, Neil. Here we go.
Okay. Well, yeah, this one you might each get a point. It's a 2-pointer. In what languages were the Old and New Testament originally written? It's 2 different languages.
Oh, Aramaic and
Persian?
Yiddish.
Yeah, Aramaic is an acceptable answer. It was actually only for 2 books of the Bible that were written in Aramaic. Hebrew was the other for the Old Testament. But so you each get a point for that. But the tricky one is the New Testament, which I didn't know until I saw it on the game show last week.
What was that originally written in?
It was in Greek.
Oh,
That makes sense.
Okay. So, a point for each of you.
Was that a full point or a half point, Brian?
Let's give you each a point. So it's 6-5, Neil.
6-5, Neil. Okay. And this is the last question?
Yes.
Why don't you make this last question worth 2 points so I have a chance of winning?
Okay. Let's do that.
Is that fair? Is that fair? Because otherwise, it's just going to tie. We're not going to have time to do a tiebreaker.
This is a Jerry Springer question.
Okay.
What U.S. city was Jerry Springer the mayor of?
What, Cleveland?
Ooh.
Cincinnati.
Awesome. I mean, it was
All right, let's call it a tie. That's 6-6. Final question, tiebreaker. Final question.
Okay, let me make sure I've got the right one.
Never wants to play poker with me. I keep changing the rules during the game. I'm sorry, folks. That's just who I am. It's a survival technique.
Go fish.
Okay.
I miss poker games.
All right. The album was called Brothers in Arms. It was in 1985 by a British band. It was the first to sell 1 million copies as in a CD format.
Dire Straits.
Dire Straits is the answer.
Wow, Neil Masters wins the pub contest. Oh, by the way, Brian, congratulations, Neil. What do we have for him? Well, he'll spend the entire afternoon catching up on email.
Push the curtain back, and I want to see the prizes. Do your Monty Hall bit. Do your Monty Hall.
Yeah.
By the way, Rick you and I agreed on a new idea for the show, which we didn't try this week, which was You've Been Hacked, which is we're going to start comparing comedians to stealing or borrowing or coincidentally doing similar material. Give us an example besides Carlos Mencia and Joe Rogan or whoever else he was.
Well, the one that I was reminded of was it was in the late 80s, and I saw 3 different comics at the Comedy Store do the same line, which was, things are really tough in LA. This was at a time when there was freeway shootings and pit bull attacks, and so 3 different comics.
Were there any pit bulls doing shootings? Because that would be interesting.
Well, similar, but 3 different comics said, "Yeah, things are tough. I'm driving in LA. Someone threw a pit bull in my car."
That's funny.
And 3 different comics used the same line. It was,
and were they all Comedy Store comics, or
they're all Comedy Store comics, and they all, and there's no way that I could see that any of them stole from each other. It was Kip Addotta, Steve Kravitz, and Blake Clark. So. And I don't think any
humble to jokes. Similarly, I have a joke that never got out of my joke book. I never did it anywhere, and it'd been there for years. And then I was out one day. A very well-known comic did the joke, and I was like, "Okay, that's interesting."
Yeah, he just read your mind.
Yeah.
And if you could read my mind, well, rest in peace, Gordon Lightfoot. But anyway.
Indeed. Neil, it was great to see you. I haven't seen you or talked to you in 20 years. You're a great guy, really interesting and a funny man. And when I get back to England by the end of this year, we have to meet up and have a pint or a sarnie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil. You take care. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you around.
Brian.
That was a good one.
Yeah, he's good. So let's talk about next week.
Dylan Brody, I think it is. Yeah.
It's Dylan. Yeah, we got Dylan, and we got Rich Scheidner after that. A week later, Patrick Mulligan, Steve Middleman, and you got, is this a British comic, Josh Howie?
Yeah, British and Jewish, and he was in Joe Bohr's film about the King's Head.
Hey, I got to get Joe to send me a link to that. I really want to see that. Anyway, Brian, Rick, whoever the hell you are, I love doing this show. It's the highlight of my week.
Yeah.
And I thank you very much. Love to Maggie. Are you going to talk to Maggie about being on the show somehow?
I have mentioned it to her. She's like, "Oh, what would I do?"
Exactly. Tell her to come on the show, and that will be the topic. What will Maggie do? That should be a new segment. Make it a regular segment. What will Maggie do? Let's start building this with creative ideas and stuff because it's fun. Let's have fun with this, and we are having fun. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Love you, Brian. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Okay.
It's Comedy Dish.